you don't have that individuality and you can't really express who you are.
I felt so dirty.
Welcome back to More Girls Next Door, the podcast where we revisit the iconic episodes of The Girls Next Door while uncovering the behind-the-scenes drama, hidden dynamics, and Playboy Mansion stories the cameras never showed. I'm your host, mega fan, and Y2K survivor Megan. Come on to my house. Today we're talking about Season 3, Episode 5, Calendar Girls, which originally aired April 7th, 2007. This episode is essentially one long creative project. There isn't a huge mansion scandal, no explosive fight, no celebrity cameos stealing the spotlight. Instead, we get something I almost enjoy more, a behind-the-scenes look at how Playboy built the fantasy. From custom-built sets and elaborate costumes to lighting, props, hair, and makeup, this episode pulls back the curtain on what it actually took to create a Playboy photo shoot. But what makes it especially interesting is that each girlfriend is finally given room to steer her own vision. Holly is treating the calendar like her first chance to prove she can creatively lead a Playboy production. Bridget is determined to make every month feel like its own miniature movie set. And Kendra decides this is the perfect excuse to experiment with an entirely different image than the one everyone's come to expect. Looking back, it's fascinating to see how much these photos reveal about each of them. Because even when they're posing for the same calendar, they're each telling a completely different story. And since every photo shoot needs the right backdrop, let's set the scene for April 2007. It's time to crack open the Y2K vault. April 2007 was when your music library became a status symbol. You weren't impressed by someone's car. You wanted to know how many songs they had on their iPod. 5,000. No way. Yeah. But how many are actually good? About 30. This was the era when iTunes ruled digital music. You didn't stream songs, you owned them. Or at least you thought you did till your computer crashed and took your entire music library with it. Every teenager had playlists with names like Sad, Sadder, Don't Listen, and somehow Party Mix. You could have thousands of songs, yet somehow skipped through all but the same 4 every single day. Meanwhile, your ringtone was probably Fergie, your MySpace profile song changed every week, your desktop background sparkled for absolutely no reason, and your digital camera contained 187 blurry bathroom mirror selfies that you refused to delete because one of them might become your next profile picture. Simpler times. Now we'll head back to the mansion. As soon as you kick off those candies, hang up the trucker hat, and silence your sidekicks, let's get into Calendar Girls.
What the are these doing in my drawer? Carlina! What are your granny underwear doing in my room?
Those are yours.
No, they aren't. I throw them out, and then I find them back in my drawer. William?
No, they're not mine. I don't like that color. They're not mine. Did you get the message about your appointment tomorrow, by the way?
Here you go. Here's Carlina's underwear.
Thank you.
You're such a pimp, William.
I always wanted to get into women's underwear, but not that way. They're not yours?
What the You think I wear these?
We open with what feels like a bizarre scene, unless you've been listening to this podcast. Kendra is standing in front of one of those towering white plastic drawer organizers that every teenager and college student seemed to own in the early 2000s. And you know the ones. The drawers never opened smoothly, one was always cracked, and somehow they always smelled vaguely like Bath & Body Works and self-tanner. She's digging through a drawer when she suddenly pulls out a pair of dark, sheer panties. She stares at them in complete disbelief. What the fuck are these doing here? You may recall a few episodes ago, while cleaning her room, Kendra found this exact same pair of mystery panties and insisted they couldn't possibly belong to her. Apparently, this is now the longest-running mystery at the Playboy Mansion. Forget ghost sightings, forget the secret tunnels. Kendra is still trying to figure out who owns one lonely pair of granny panties. Wearing low-rise bootcut jeans, a velour hoodie, and Ugg boots, she marches downstairs carrying the mystery underwear like she's presenting Exhibit A in a criminal investigation. She finds mansion butler Carlina in the kitchen. "What are your granny panties doing in my room?" Carlina barely hesitates. "Those are yours." Without missing a beat, Kendra redirects the accusation toward another mansion employee, William. Salt and pepper hair, warm smile, thick Scottish accent. Kendra points at him. "William?" He glances at the underwear. "Nope, not my color." Perfect delivery. Without asking permission, Kendra walks over, stretches the panties over William's head, and leaves him temporarily blinded. William laughs while trying to untangle himself. "I've always wanted to get into women's underwear, but not this way." Can we just take a moment to credit the staff for how well they handled complete nonsense on a daily basis? Kendra still refuses to accept ownership. She pins the underwear onto the kitchen message board. In dry erase marker, she writes boldly, "Ew, whose granny panties are these?" and walks away satisfied. For now. And this is actually a perfect time to explain something we haven't talked about on this podcast. This clip is what's called a cold open. A cold open is the short scene that happens before the opening credits. Sometimes it's connected to the main story. Sometimes it's completely random. Sitcoms use them all the time. The Office practically turned cold opens into an art form. Think about Jim putting Dwight's stapler in Jell-O, or convincing Dwight he'd become the manager, or the fire drill where Stanley has a heart attack. None of those scenes had much to do with the episode's main plot. They were simply funny little appetizers before the real story began. The Girls Next Door did the same thing, surprisingly often. Random pranks, random conversations, random mansion antics. Little moments that made the house feel lived in. The difference is, this particular pair of mystery underwear actually comes back later in the episode. Not in the way you'd expect, but the editors definitely remembered them. Now here's something else that's interesting. If you've listened to Holly and Bridget over on Girls Next Level, you've probably heard them talk about how strict the mansion rules supposedly were regarding staff. According to both of them, the girlfriends weren't really supposed to fraternize with employees. The butlers, the chefs, the housekeeping staff, there was meant to be a professional distance. Yet Kendra constantly seems to exist in a completely different universe. She's teasing William, joking with Carlina, roaming into the kitchen whenever she feels like it, playing practical jokes, having casual conversations with employees. It happens over and over and over again throughout the series. Holly and Bridget have both suggested they weren't nearly as comfortable doing things like this because they believed the rules actually applied to them. Their theory is that producers wanted Kendra to come across as the fun, carefree, relatable girlfriend. So interactions like these were encouraged, or at the very least, allowed. Whether that's true, only the people who worked there would really know, but when you watch the series with that perspective, you do start noticing that Kendra's relationship with the staff feels noticeably different from Holly's and Bridget's. It isn't necessarily better, just different. And that's something worth keeping in the back of your mind as we move through season 3. Because the more successful the show became, the more each girlfriend gradually started occupying her own lane.
Good morning, Mary.
What's up, girl?
I'm excited because the calendar shoot is coming up. Instead of shooting together like we did last year, we each have 4 different months to play around with and kind of do whatever we want.
The next scene takes us into Mary's office, where Holly has stopped by to discuss the girlfriend's upcoming 2008 calendar. The girls had already released a 2007 Girls Next Door calendar, but the show never documented its creation. And according to Holly and Bridget, years later on Girls Next Level, there's a pretty simple reason it wasn't exactly a masterpiece. There wasn't much of a budget. Instead of creating 12 brand new concepts, Playboy largely pieced together the calendar using photographs that already existed from previous photo shoots. The result was a collection of beautiful images, but not necessarily a calendar that felt like one cohesive project. Some months had one look, some had another. The photography styles varied. The wardrobes varied. It was less of a carefully curated product and more of a greatest hits album. This time, things were going to be different. The budget was bigger. Every image would be created specifically for the calendar. Even better, the girls wouldn't spend the entire shoot posing together. Each girlfriend would receive 4 months completely dedicated to her own creative vision. That may not sound revolutionary today, but within Playboy, it actually was. Ever since the Girls Next Door premiered, Holly, Bridget, and Kendra had been marketed almost like a single brand. Everything was the 3 girlfriends. And while that branding undoubtedly helped make the show a success, it also meant their individual personalities could get a little lost. We've watched Holly push for more creative responsibilities. We've watched Bridget gravitate toward elaborate themes and storytelling. We've watched Kendra resist almost every attempt to fit neatly into Playboy's polished image. This calendar finally gives each of them enough room to lean into what makes them different instead of trying to complement one another. For Holly, it's also becoming something much more personal. She tells Mary she's essentially overseeing the project. Then Holly follows up with, "But don't tell Hef." And I laugh because if there's one recurring theme on this show, it's that everyone is constantly trying to complete a project before Hef notices it's happening. Holly explains in her interview that she believes she can successfully creative direct the calendar if she's simply allowed to finish it before too many opinions get added to the mix. Her goal wasn't to hide the calendar. She simply wanted to get it photographed first. Because once Hef became involved, he tended to have very specific ideas, specific wardrobe notes, specific poses, specific props, specific everything. Holly knew if she could put a polished product in front of him, there was a much better chance he'd approve it than if every decision became a committee meeting along the way. From the office, Holly heads over to Bridget's room to start brainstorming wardrobe and set ideas. Holly explains that she's especially invested in making this calendar better than the last one. She felt the previous calendar looked rushed and lacked a consistent vision.
Cute.
Isn't that fun?
Uh-huh. One thing I disliked about last year's calendar is we did it so last minute, so we had to choose outtakes from our pictorials that we shot.
Last year, there were pictures in there that I would have never have wanted in there. Like my Halloween one, I'm like all bug-eyed.
If you've listened to Girls Next Level for any length of time, you've almost certainly heard Holly and Bridget bring up what's become known among fans as the drowned rat photo. If you haven't, let me paint the picture. It's one of their promotional images from the previous calendar featuring all 3 girlfriends sitting together in satin robes. For reasons that remain known only to the photography gods, their hair looks damp. The lighting is a little odd, and somehow all 3 women end up looking significantly less glamorous than they normally did. Considering these are 3 women whose careers literally depended on photographs, it's easy to understand why that particular image has haunted them for nearly 20 years. Bridget admits there were several other photos she wished had never made the final cut. This year, they're hoping that won't happen. One decision Holly feels especially good about is using the same photographer for every single shoot. That photographer is Arnie Freytag. You've heard his name. Arnie photographed hundreds upon hundreds of pictorials over several decades and became one of the defining visual architects of Playboy's look. By putting the entire calendar in Arnie's hands, Holly believes each girl's wildly different themes will still feel connected. Bridget sums it up perfectly. It's not just girls on the beach in bikinis. No, this calendar is becoming something much bigger than that. Each month is designed to feel like its own little world. And knowing Bridget, give her permission to create a fantasy, and she's going to use every square inch of it. Before the conversation ends, the two of them pause for a second. Then one quietly wonders, what do you think Kendra's gonna do? Kendra has spent the last 2 seasons proving she's perfectly happy showing up in a football jersey, sneakers, and absolutely no interest in looking traditionally Playboy. So whatever she's planning, it's probably going to surprise everyone.
Come in.
Hi, honey.
Hey, baby.
For the calendar, I wanted everybody to see the different side of me. Well, since I always do like sports and all that stuff, you know, I thought it'd be cool, like for this calendar, to kind of switch it up a little bit and do something that you like, you know. And so I was kind of thinking about doing like a Mae West.
Oh, I would love that.
A Mae-
The next scene finds Kendra upstairs in Hef's bedroom while he's lying across the bed surrounded by magazine layouts. Kendra tells Hef she was one of the original rule breakers. Mae West started out writing and performing on Broadway before heading to Hollywood in the early 1930s, where she quickly became one of Paramount Pictures' biggest stars. She wasn't famous because she played the sweet, innocent love interest. Quite the opposite. She built an entire career around playing women who were confident, sexually unapologetic, and always the smartest person in the room. She wrote much of her own material, packed it full of double entendres, and constantly battled censorship because audiences loved her far more than the moral watchdogs did. Some of her one-liners have become part of American pop culture. Why don't you come up sometime and see me? When I'm good, I'm very good. But when I'm bad, I'm better. And one that's often attributed to her, is that a gun in your pocket? Or are you just happy to see me? Whether she actually coined every one of those quotes is still debated, but they've become inseparable from the larger-than-life character she created. Her influence became so enormous that during World War II, Allied soldiers even nicknamed their inflatable yellow life jackets Mae Wests because of their exaggerated curves. Now that's cultural impact. So when Kendra tells Hef she wants to channel Mae West, he absolutely loves the idea. Oh, absolutely, he says. I would love that.
There are a couple lines that I know that Mae West said that I love. You know, like, is that a gun in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me? You know, stuff like that. Damn, that girl is just like me.
And I feel like this is probably the right place to address one of the longest-running debates in the Girls Next Door fandom. Holly and Bridget have discussed this particular photo shoot on Girls Next Level. Their argument basically boils down to this. Old Hollywood glamour had always been Holly's thing. She adored Marilyn Monroe, vintage fashion, classic cinema, soft curls, the whole aesthetic. So when Kendra suddenly announces she's doing Mae West, Holly has questioned whether Kendra was genuinely interested in the era, whether she was trying to impress Hef, or whether she even knew who Mae West was before Mary suggested the idea. At one point, Holly even floated the possibility that Kendra chose the theme simply because she knew it would annoy her. Personally, I think that's giving this way more significance than it deserves. For one, Holly doesn't own old Hollywood. It's an entire era. Second, Playboy has been borrowing from classic Hollywood aesthetics since long before Holly ever arrived at the mansion. And third, sometimes an idea is just an idea, even if Mary helped brainstorm it, even if Hef appreciated it, even if Kendra thought it would score a few extra points with him. Who cares? That's kind of how creative collaboration works. People bounce ideas off of one another all the time. More importantly, Kendra seems genuinely excited about the transformation. Throughout the episode, she's quoting Mae West lines, laughing, having fun with the character, and embracing a style we've never really seen her attempt before. And with Hef's blessing secured, it's finally time to start shooting the calendar.
I love when Playboy does sexy winter pictures, so I wanted January and December so I could do winter pictures. I think my favorite shoot was the Alaskan Tavern. It was a really cool set, and there was a hidden puffin in it. My third setup, I just wanted to shoot like a mansion fantasy, by the pool with a glass of champagne. Mainly, I'm trying to impress Hef.
Good job, good job.
Our first stop is Playboy's Studio West, where we get a rare behind-the-scenes look at how these fantasy worlds come together. One thing I've always appreciated about episodes like this is that they remind you Playboy wasn't just photographing beautiful women. They were building movie sets. You weren't supposed to look at a picture and think, that's a nice studio. You were supposed to believe, if only for a second, that this woman actually lived in that world. It's easy to forget now because so much photography has become digital. Today, someone could generate an entire snowy landscape with a few clicks of a mouse. But back then, someone had to build it. Someone had to hang the lights, paint the scenery, dress the set, drag in the furniture, fill the hot tub. There was a whole team creating the illusion before the model ever stepped onto the set. The first month Holly shoots is December. The set is a secluded winter retreat. A wood-framed hot tub bubbles beneath strings of tiny fairy lights while snow-covered pine trees surround the scene. Holly has slipped into a pale pink Playboy thong bikini. Her hair is soaked beforehand to make it look like she's been relaxing in the water. And Arnie immediately starts shooting. From there, they move to what Holly has said remains one of her favorite Playboy sets she ever worked on. The month of January, an Alaskan Tavern. And I get it. The set is pretty incredible. Inside the studio, they've recreated a rustic saloon, complete with weathered wood walls, old beer signs, taxidermy, bar stools, lanterns, and enough tiny details that it genuinely feels like a place someone could walk into. Holly wears a vintage-inspired corset, boots, and layers of winter accessories while posing like the glamorous owner of this quirky little frontier bar. It's playful, it's cinematic, and most importantly, it tells a story. Next comes August. If January leaned into storytelling, August leans into classic Playboy fantasy. The setting shifts to the mansion pool. Holly wears a shimmering gold Versace swimsuit, holds a champagne flute, and effortlessly becomes the glamorous poolside bombshell Playboy had perfected decades earlier. As Arnie and Holly review the images together, Holly admits something that's been motivating her throughout the entire project. She desperately wants Hef to love this calendar. Remember, by this point, Holly has her sights set on eventually becoming a Playboy photo editor. This calendar isn't just another modeling job. It's part of her resume. She's trying to show that she understands the creative process from beginning to end. She's no longer thinking solely like the woman in front of the camera. She's beginning to think like the person behind it. And if Holly approached the calendar like a creative director, Bridget approached it like an event planner with an unlimited budget.
Not quite yet. I wanted my scene to be like decadence, like a chocolate fantasy. So I made sure there was plenty of chocolate. The cowgirl shoot setup was super cute. They went all out. Oh, and I brought a stick pony. It's really cool. It goes so cute.
I've said it before, but Bridget has a gift for committing to a theme. Nothing is ever halfway. So giving Bridget 4 blank calendar months was basically telling the most enthusiastic kid in art class, go nuts. Her first stop is February. The entire set is built around Valentine's Day. She's transformed into a classic pinup girl wearing bright red lingerie with soft vintage curls and sky-high heels stretched across a giant heart-shaped bed covered in red satin sheets. Around her are oversized boxes of chocolates, roses, lace pillows, and enough Valentine's decor to make a Hallmark store feel understated. I have to say, this might be one of my favorite Bridget looks of the entire series. Everything works. It's glamorous without looking overly complicated, like something straight out of a 1950s pinup illustration. Next comes July, and naturally Bridget takes us in the complete opposite direction. Now, we're in a barn. She's wearing a blue and white gingham bikini, cowboy boots, a matching cowboy hat, a holster, and even a prop revolver. Around her are hay bales, wagon wheels, and wooden fencing. Again, it's not simply girls standing in front of a backdrop. It's a character. It's almost like Bridget asked herself, if this woman existed, what would her whole world look like? And then she builds it, right down to pigtails and drawn-on freckles. Then we cut to Kendra, getting prepped, pulled, primmed, styled, and transformed for her first shoot. And anyone who watched this show when it aired and knew anything about pop culture in 2007 knew exactly where Kendra got her inspiration. For June and November, Kendra is giving Christina Aguilera's Dirrty era. She's wearing assless chaps, red patent leather accessories, and posing on a motorcycle against a faux graffiti brick wall. And guys, this is not subtle. This is not a loose reference. This is ex-Tina with a Playboy key around her neck. And honestly, it works. Christina's stripped era was one of the biggest image reinventions of the early 2000s. She went from polished pop princess to ex-Tina, piercings, chaps, black hair extensions, heavy eyeliner, and a whole new attitude. People were scandalized. Parents were clutching pearls. TRL was eating it up. And every girl who had ever been told to be sweet and pretty suddenly watched Christina show up looking like she had escaped from a motorcycle garage with a microphone and a point to prove. So Kendra choosing this look makes total sense. It's rebellious, it's athletic, it's aggressive. It lets her be sexy without becoming soft. And for Kendra, that's always the balance. She doesn't usually want to look delicate. She wants to look like she could win a bar fight and still make the cover. Next, we move to her boxing ring shoot. Kendra wears a miniskirt, fingerless gloves, stiletto boots, knee pads, and black extension strands dreaded into her hair. Again, it's very Christina-inspired, and Kendra admits as much in her interview.
That's pretty.
I came up with the badass biker chick theme because I'm a badass and I like bikes.
Like that. There you go.
Yeah, the booty shot is definitely my signature pose. Ever since Christina Aguilera did the whole Dirrty video, I have dreamed about doing like a shoot like that, spoofing it up a little bit, you know?
Yeah, I like that. Real aggressive, yeah. Nice.
I felt so dirty, but, Kendra dirty, not Christina Aguilera dirty.
Really great stuff.
Kendra's third concept is a complete change of pace. For the month of March, she heads to a golf course wearing a preppy plaid skirt, argyle knee socks, and a white visor. Compared to the leather, motorcycles, and boxing ring we'd just seen, this look almost feels wholesome. Kendra explains she chose the golf theme because her grandmother loves golf. It's a sweet little detail that probably would have been easy to miss, but I like that she wasn't trying to make every single month edgy. She was actually giving each one its own personality. We head back to the mansion for Holly's final calendar month, May. Outside on the mansion grounds, Holly walks towards an enormous tree where a very unexpected co-star meets her. A massive yellow python named Banana. And when I say massive, I mean massive. The snake's handler carries Banana onto the set, and the inspiration is obvious. Anyone who lived through early 2000s immediately recognizes the reference. This is Britney Spears performing I'm a Slave for You at the 2001 MTV Video Music Awards. That performance became one of the defining pop culture moments of the decade. Britney emerging with a live albino Burmese python draped across her shoulders shocked audiences, launched 1,000 Halloween costumes, and instantly cemented snakes as an oddly glamorous fashion accessory for about 5 minutes in Y2K history. On Girls Next Level, Holly confirmed that's exactly what inspired this concept. She even said Banana was believed to be the very same snake Britney used during that performance. The only difference, 6 years had passed, and Banana had done what snakes tend to do. He grew. A lot. Holly has laughed about how incredibly difficult this shoot actually was because Banana constantly shifted his weight against her body. Trying to smile naturally while supporting an enormous snake apparently isn't as effortless as she made it look. In fact, to this day, Holly blames Banana for making her waist look chunky in the finished photographs because he kept pressing so heavily into her side. To which I can only say, Holly, I love you, but did that need to be a focus in your recap? And listeners, do me a favor. Google the calendar, take a gander at the month of May, and let me know in the comments if you don't eye roll so hard you get a glimpse of your cerebellum. The photograph is the literal epitome of body goals. Plus, Holly has a daughter now. Moments like these when she picks apart her perfect figure, I have questions. But I digress. Next, we're with Bridget, and it's October, which should surprise absolutely no one. Of course, Bridget picked Halloween. If there were ever a holiday designed specifically for Bridget Marcourt, it's Halloween. This particular concept was inspired by a painting pinup artist Olivia de Berenides had previously created of Bridget. To make the illusion work, the production team actually built a wedge platform hidden beneath blue screen fabric. From the camera's angle, it makes her appear to be effortlessly soaring through the night sky on a witch's broom. In reality, she's balancing on a concealed support while trying to look elegant. Movie magic. She's wearing a sheer black teddy, pointed knee-high boots, and posing against a giant glowing full moon. It's wonderfully theatrical.
Are we about ready? Okay, we got 10 minutes. Now, I have a major problem. I've got a bare ass showing on the calendar. I can't do that. Is the underwear on? Is the underwear on? I can't show this on a calendar. Yeah, I need some kind of underwear or something. We have new underwear. Can we put it on, please?
For the witch calendar shoot, I was wearing really skimpy panties, and Arnie thought it was a little too revealing, so we changed into something with a little more coverage.
Then Arnie notices Bridget's thong reveals a little too much for the calendar's nudity guidelines. So he asks if wardrobe has something with a little more coverage. Someone hands Bridget a pair of panties. But not just any panties. The granny panties. Or at least a pair that looks suspiciously similar to the mysterious underwear Kendra has been trying to disown all season. The editors absolutely knew what they were doing. Bridget, however, wasn't laughing. On Girls Next Level, Bridget shared a very different interpretation of that little underwear callback. She theorized it wasn't just an innocent joke by the editors. She believed it was a deliberate dig at her. After spending multiple episodes bouncing this mysterious pair of granny panties from person to person, the show ultimately lands them on Bridget. And from her perspective, the implication was clear. These must be hers. And considering Bridget has spoken openly about the show's tendency to make subtle comments about her weight over the years, she felt this was just another example of producers trying to reinforce that narrative. The thing is, when fans revisited the episode, a lot of them pointed out the same thing. Those underwear really aren't big. They're fuller coverage than a G-string, but oversized? No. Granny panties? I'm not seeing it. These definitely don't look like anything my grandmother would have tucked away in her dresser. Whether the editors intended it as a harmless running gag or something more pointed, Bridget is still not amused. The final stop on Kendra's calendar tour is easily her most unexpected. Gone are the motorcycles, the boxing gloves, the golf clubs. Instead, Kendra emerges wearing a black lace corset, a long sheer robe, dramatic feathered hat, bright red lipstick, and she's puffing on a cigarette holder by the mansion's grand staircase. She's become Mae West. What I actually find interesting is how committed Kendra is once she lands on the concept. She isn't treating it like a costume. She's studied Mae West's posture, her expressions, her cadence. She's quoting her dialogue. She's clearly having fun, stepping into a character that's completely different from the image viewers had come to expect from her. Ironically, for someone who spent 2 seasons trying not to look like a traditional Playboy model, Kendra ends up embracing one of Playboy's oldest influences, and she pulls it off surprisingly well. There is one other detail that jumped out at me, though. The lipstick. Bright, classic Hollywood red. If you've listened to enough former girlfriends tell stories about life at the mansion, you've probably heard one rule repeated over and over again. Hugh Hefner supposedly hated red lipstick. Yet here we are, Kendra is wearing unmistakably red lipstick. Not just around the mansion, but in an official Playboy photo shoot. So what gives? Maybe the rule was more flexible than it's often been described. Maybe period styling got a pass. Maybe Hef simply thought authenticity to the Mae West character mattered more than his personal preference. Or maybe this is another example people point to when they argue Kendra was occasionally given a little more freedom than Holly and Bridget. Whatever the explanation, it's certainly an interesting inconsistency. By the end of the shoot, Hef is smiling, Kendra looks thrilled, and with that, we've officially seen every month of the calendar. Well, almost every month. Now, there's something I noticed when putting together this recap that completely escaped me when I watched this episode back in 2007. Holly told us each girlfriend would receive 4 months in the calendar. Let's do the math. Holly, in the hot tub, Alaskan Tavern, poolside, and with the snake. Yeah, that's 4. Kendra, on the motorbike, in the boxing ring, on the golf course, and channeling Mae West. That's also 4. Bridget, on the heart-shaped bed, in the barn, and as the broom-riding witch. Whoops, that's only 3. Which meant one entire Bridget photo shoot had been left on the cutting room floor. Naturally, I had to figure out what it was. And the answer actually takes us all the way back to season 2. Remember Hef's 80th birthday? More specifically, Bridget's burlesque-inspired striptease that ended with her stepping out of a giant birthday cake? Well, that wasn't the last time Playboy used that concept. Bridget's missing month was April. She repurposed the giant fake cake, wore the same burlesque-inspired costume, and posed with it for the calendar. Once I realized that, the edit suddenly made perfect sense. From the producer's perspective, viewers had already watched Bridget rehearse the routine, perform the routine, and spend a significant portion of an earlier episode talking about the routine. Showing the calendar version probably felt repetitive, so out it went. Honestly, I think they made the right call. It would have been fun to see another minute or two of behind-the-scenes footage, but we already understood the concept. I'd much rather spend that screen time watching giant snakes, haunted broomsticks, and Christina Aguilera-inspired sets. Those are a little harder to recycle. The following day, everyone gathers at Playboy Studio West for one last calendar shoot, the calendar cover. For the first time all episode, Holly, Bridget, and Kendra are back together in front of the same camera. The girls change into matching black bikinis and pose against a clean white background. Compared to the elaborate movie sets we've seen throughout the episode, the simplicity is almost refreshing.
Yep. They are my favorite girls to shoot because they're very aware of how they look. They know how their bodies look the best way. They study, they practice. They're professionals. So it makes my life really easy. Let's take a look at what we got.
Photographer Arnie Freytag watches them play off one another while firing away frame after frame. In an interview, he says Holly, Bridget, and Kendra are his favorite models to photograph. That's a pretty significant compliment coming from Arnie. Over the course of his career, he photographed hundreds of playmates and celebrities. Yet even years later, when he appeared on Girls Next Level, he stood by that opinion. He said the girls consistently came prepared, understood their angles, took direction well, and genuinely enjoyed working together. You can actually see that chemistry here. Whether they were as close behind the scenes as the show sometimes suggested is another conversation. But once the cameras started clicking, they knew exactly how to work as a team. After the shoot, the three crowd around a monitor with Arnie reviewing the images together. Instead of competing over who looks best, they're pointing out poses they all like and narrowing down the strongest cover as a group. Considering how much this episode has focused on each woman carving out her own creative identity, it's fitting that they come back together for the final image. The individual months may showcase their different personalities, but the cover still has to sell the girls next door.
I like that one too. It was actually really hard picking out a photo because there's so many good pictures that I was like, dang, I love them all. Just put them all in there.
Back at the mansion, Holly nervously joins Hef in the office as he flips through the calendar mock-up for the first time. This is the moment she's been working toward all episode. Not because she's waiting for approval as a girlfriend, but because she's waiting for feedback as the person who helped shape the project. Hef slowly turns the pages, studies the layouts, looks over the concepts. Finally, he smiles. I think it's a beautiful job. The episode ends with Holly talking about her long-term goal of becoming a Playboy photo editor. She kisses Hef and victoriously holds up the calendar and faces the cover toward the camera.
I do want to be a photo editor at Playboy, and I think this is just another way for me to prove myself. Thank you, honey.
You are welcome.
Yay!
Very good.
When I first watched this episode back in 2007, I thought it was mostly about pretty pictures. Now, I think it's about personality. Strip away the lighting, the sets, the costumes, and what you're really left with is a fascinating snapshot of who Holly, Bridget, and Kendra each were at this point in their lives. Holly approaches the calendar like a producer. She's thinking about continuity, budgets, photography, how each month flows into the next. She's modeling, but she's also managing. You can already see her looking beyond being the person in front of the camera. Bridget approaches it like an artist. Every month has a backstory, a character, a theme, a fully realized world. She's happiest when she's creating an experience. And if you've watched the series, that shouldn't surprise you one bit. Whether it's a birthday party, Halloween, or now a calendar, Bridget doesn't just participate, she commits. And then there's Kendra. Instead of repeating the image everyone already associates with her, she experiments. She tries old Hollywood. She channels Christina Aguilera. She boxes. She golfs. Some ideas land better than others, but she's willing to play around and see what sticks. Looking at all 12 months together, it's funny how different they are. One calendar, 3 women, 3 completely different creative instincts. Ironically, that's probably what makes the finished product work. If every month looked like Holly, it would have been beautiful but predictable. If every month looked like Bridget, it would have been wonderfully theatrical but maybe a little overwhelming. If every month looked like Kendra, it would have been bold, unpredictable, and all over the map. Instead, the calendar works because it borrows a little from all 3. And maybe that's the biggest takeaway from this episode. For years, Playboy marketed Holly, Bridget, and Kendra as a package deal. The 3 girlfriends, the trio, the faces of the girls next door. But this calendar reminds us that they were never interchangeable. Each one brought something to the table that the other 2 couldn't. Different interests, different humor, different creativity, different ways of seeing the world. That's probably why people still debate them nearly 20 years later. Everyone has a favorite, not because one was objectively better than the others, but because they were all so unmistakably different. I want to say thank you to my listeners and a surprisingly loyal fan base that's seeming to emerge and keep in contact. I love hearing from you. I'll be back soon. I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.
On the bricks.